What does it truly mean to achieve mastery? And I'm not just talking about getting good at a skill, but mastery in life itself. In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into some fascinating ancient Indian texts, like the Yoga Sutras and the Arthashastra, to see if we could uncover a timeless blueprint for mastering our own selves.
So let's just start with that big central question. What is true mastery? I mean, is it all about external control, power and influence? Or is it something deeper, something internal? Well, these ancient sources suggest the answer begins in a place that honestly we all know pretty intimately.
And yeah, that place is our own mind. If you've ever felt scattered or distracted, or felt like your thoughts are just running a mile a minute without your permission, well, you're experiencing a fundamental human condition. And these ancient thinkers, they were obsessed with solving it. They saw this inner chaos not as some modern problem, but as the primary obstacle to any real form of mastery. So let's put a name to this thing. Let's really define this core problem. Because according to yogic philosophy, this isn't just some vague feeling of being overwhelmed. It's a very specific, identifiable state of being.
The Sanskrit term for this is chitta vritti. Okay, let's break that down. Chitta refers to our mento-emotional energy. It's basically the very stuff our minds and feelings are made of. And vritti means fluctuations or whirlpools or vibrations. So chitta vritti is literally the constant, uncontrolled spinning of our inner world. It's all that mental noise that pulls us in 1,000 different directions and stops us from being able to focus on any one thing. Sound familiar? Now, this is what I find so fascinating. This quote completely reframes what most of us think of as yoga. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, right at the very beginning, state it so plainly. The entire goal, the very skill of yoga, is to consciously stop these fluctuations. So it's not about nailing a handstand. It's about achieving a state of profound mental stillness. This right here is the real starting point of mastery, learning how to calm that inner storm.
Okay, so if the problem is a restless mind, what's the solution? Well, thankfully, these texts don't just diagnose the problem and leave us hanging. They provide an incredibly detailed, systematic path to solve it. It's a path to true inner mastery. So take a look at this. These are the first 6 steps of the famous 8-limbed path from the Yoga Sutras, and it brilliantly illustrates just how methodical this whole approach is. I mean, notice it doesn't start with some abstract command to just meditate. No, it starts on the outside with your behavior in the world, moral restraints, recommended actions. Then it moves to the body with posture and then to the breath. It's only after you get a handle on these external and physical layers that the path turns inward to the senses and the mind itself. And this is an absolutely crucial point. Why start with the body and the breath? Well, because they're the most tangible levers we have to influence the mind. Think about it. It's incredibly difficult to just tell your mind to be quiet. It's like trying to grab smoke. But you can consciously hold a posture. You can consciously control your breathing. These physical disciplines become the practical, hands-on tools for achieving mental stillness.
Now, I know this might look a little intense, right? But it's actually a perfect example of that physical discipline we're talking about. This is Sutra Neti, a cleansing technique from the Hatha Yoga tradition. The whole idea is to purify the physical body to prepare it for more subtle practices. It's a concrete, tangible act of discipline that builds the very focus and resilience you're going to need for the much, much harder work of mastering the mind.
And this idea builds with pranayama. Now, this is so much more than just breathing exercises. Prana is the vital life force, the very energy that animates everything. So pranayama is the practice of controlling this fundamental energy through the breath. By mastering your breath, you are literally mastering the very flow of energy in your body, which, as you can imagine, has a direct and powerful effect on the stillness of your mind. So what's the endgame here? What's the ultimate goal of all this intense discipline? I mean, why go through all the trouble of calming the mind and controlling the body? The texts are crystal clear. It's all about discovering what lies beyond the mind. And that ultimate reality is called the Atman, or the self. And this is not the self we usually think of, our personality, our ego, all our thoughts and feelings. The Atman is the silent, unchanging witness behind it all. It's the pure consciousness that exists completely separate from the restless chitta vritti. The entire goal of yoga is to quiet the mind just enough so you can finally perceive this true self. This beautiful quote from the Upanishads just captures this idea perfectly. It's saying that the self is the fundamental consciousness that powers everything else. It's the silent operator behind all the machinery of our perception and thought.
It's not your eye that sees, it's the self that is the eye of the eye. This is the core reality you're trying to connect with.
Okay, so we've got the path of the yogi, which is all about inner liberation. But what about mastery in the practical external world? What if your goal isn't spiritual enlightenment, but just being an effective leader? Well, it turns out the core principle is exactly the same.
So now we're shifting gears to a completely different kind of text, Kautilya's Arthashastra. This was an ancient Indian manual on statecraft, economics, military strategy, the whole shebang. And it says that danda, which is the force or power of the state, is what creates security. But then it adds this crucial little catch, that power is entirely dependent on vinaya, or discipline. So even for a king, the foundation of all external power is internal discipline.
So you can think of danda as the ruler's primary tool for external control. It's the force they use to create order in a kingdom. It's kind of the worldly equivalent to the yogi's hard-won control over their own inner state.
And this is where it all just clicks into place. Look at the parallel here. The yogi masters their inner world, the citta-vritti, to achieve peace. The ruler masters the outer world, the state, through danda to achieve security. Yeah, the goals are different. One wants spiritual liberation, the other wants a stable kingdom. But the path, that fundamental requirement, is exactly the same: discipline.
So when we synthesize these two paths that seem so different, the path of the spiritual seekers and the path of the worldly ruler, we arrive at a single universal principle for the art of mastery.
So here's the bottom line. First, all mastery starts within. It doesn't matter if you want to calm your mind or rule a kingdom, you have to begin with yourself. Second, discipline isn't optional. It is the path. A structured, consistent practice is what builds control. Third, the goal is to know the self, to learn to distinguish between that unchanging consciousness and all those fleeting thoughts. And finally, and this is key, this inner discipline isn't just for quiet contemplation. It translates directly into outer effectiveness in the real world.
And that really leaves us with this final thought. True mastery, as these ancient traditions see it, isn't about bending the external world to your will. It's about mastering the inner world, your own mind, your own energy, your own consciousness. Because once you've mastered the self that experiences the world, your relationship with the world itself is fundamentally transformed.